Hello, Equality California. I'm Jackie Thomas. And while my title may include the word president as the leader of the Equality California Institute's Board of Directors, it's a bit different from the office that our next honorees made a historic run at earlier this year. Like so many of you, my wife Deanne and I watched with awe as Pete and Chasten Buttigieg ran a trailblazing campaign for the nation's highest office. But what doesn't get talked about very often is how hard it is to be the first. As if the presidential campaign wasn't enough pressure on its own. As the first gay couple on the campaign trail, Pete and Chasten had to deal with a lot of probing questions about their personal lives, protesters shouting vulgarities about their sexuality, and a whole level of political theater that not even Chasten's theater degree could cover. And yet, they persevered. They spread a message of unity that our country so badly needs right now. They changed hearts and minds. They lifted spirits, and they gave people hope. People like a 9-year-old boy named Zachary in Colorado.
Okay, the next question comes from Zachary, age 9, and this is a really touching question. He says, "Thank you for being so brave. Would you help me tell the world I'm gay too? I want to be brave like you."
Zachary? Hey! This for me? Thank you. Well, I don't think you need a lot of advice from me on bravery. You seem pretty strong. It took me a long time to figure out how to tell even my best friend that I was gay, let alone to go out there and tell the world. And to see you willing to come to terms with who you are in a room full of 1,000 people, thousands of people you've never met, that's really something. Let me tell you a couple things that might be useful. The first thing is that it won't always be easy, but that's okay, because you know who you are. The second thing I want you to know is that you'll never know who's taking their lead from you, who's watching you, and deciding that they can be a little braver, because you have been brave. When I was trying to figure out who I was afraid that who I was might mean that I could never make a difference. And what wound up happening instead is that it's a huge part of the difference I get to make. I never could have seen that coming. And you'll never know whose life you might be affecting right now, just by standing here, right now. There's a lot of power in that. And the last thing I want you to know is, even if I can't promise it'll always be easy, I can promise you that I'm going to be rooting for you. And I think there's a whole bunch of people here who are going to be rooting you every step.
The dictionary defines a trailblazer as a person who blazes a trail for others to follow through unsettled country or wilderness, a pathfinder. To say that our country feels unsettled at the moment is a profound understatement. But Pete and Chasten cut a path through all of this insanity and caught the attention of our nation and continue to inspire us all. And they did this together as a team. For the LGBTQ+ seniors who have carried the weight of our struggle for equality for so long, and for LGBTQ+ youth dreaming of the impact they may one day have on this world, Pete's candidacy was a tangible example that the needle has indeed moved forward. Along the way, Chasten's humor and openness complemented Pete's vision. Let's remember, this all happened during their first year of marriage. Now that's quite a relationship test. He was able to share his own story as both an educator and a man who had struggled with his own coming out. Pete and Chasten Buttigieg have transformed American politics and our LGBTQ+ community forever. Equality California was proud to support them during their historic presidential campaign, and we look forward to their continued leadership in our community. On behalf of our fellow Equality California and Equality California Institute board members, it is our privilege to present Pete and Chasten with this year's Equality Trailblazer Award.
and Chasten.
We are sending warm greetings from here at home to everyone who's gathering tonight with Equality California for this year's unique Golden State Equality Awards. I want to start off just by thanking and acknowledging your board president, Joe Gregorich, and Institute board president, Jackie Thomas, for everything that you are doing as leaders in our community. Also, your terrific executive director, Rick Chavez-Burr, and my friends, Cecilia Cabello and Norman Lear, who I know are joining us tonight.
We are so humbled to be honored with the Equality Trailblazer Award tonight. Looking at the past recipients, including Dolores Huerta, Speaker Pelosi, and our next Vice President, Kamala Harris, we couldn't be more proud to be included.
Well, we very much wish that we could be gathering in person right now. I also want to thank everyone who supports Equality California, our nation's largest statewide LGBTQ+ civil rights organization, for working for civil rights and justice for over 20 years. And of course, right now, I don't need to tell any of you, we are living through an extraordinary time in the life of our country, with so much on the line. In many ways, it is and feels like a dark time, but I also find so much hope looking at the arc of our own community's ongoing march toward equality. We've made meaningful gains, changing hearts and laws to recognize that who you love or how you identify should have no impact on your right to marry or have a job or get an apartment or live well. The cultural and political shift is happening rapidly. Think about how my candidacy for the U.S. presidency wouldn't have just been considered laughable 51 years ago, but probably 5 years ago too. And we know that there's so much more to do. There's an epidemic of violence against Black trans women in this country. Conversion therapy must be banned everywhere. And this administration's continuous attacks on the trans community, from service members to access to healthcare, must come to an end. And I'm very hopeful that it will. A Biden-Harris administration will pass and sign the Equality Act and build a government that reflects the diversity and the strength of our country. And that, of course, includes LGBTQ+ Americans of every background. There are 11 million eligible LGBTQ+ voters around the country, 57 million pro-equality voters at least. And if we make sure all of them vote, this will be a historic victory up and down the ballot in November.
Peter and I know from having the tremendous opportunity to crisscross this country over the past 2 years just how warm and inviting the American people can be in places you might not always expect. But in my own story, I have seen the transformation that occurs when people open their own hearts to embrace people who are different from them and give other people a chance. I grew up in a town in northern Michigan where, at the time, it was simply unsafe to be out. There were no out people or role models I could look up to as I began my own journey, and life wasn't always easy for me. But then there are organizations like Equality California and those across the country sending up beacons of hope who helped change the tide in our fight for acceptance, equality, visibility, and pride. And then fast forward this year as I traveled around the country campaigning for my husband as he campaigned for President of the United States. Yes, our story can be a powerful reminder of what is possible, but it's also a reminder for how much fight we still have left for true equality for everyone in this community and this country. That's why we have to continue to speak up and out and do the hard work every day to protect and support LGBTQ youth whose circumstances still make them feel unloved, unseen, or unsafe.
You know, when I think back to my younger self, if I could have known that the very same thing that I thought might mean I'd never get to serve in uniform or in office turned out to be a big part of how I had a chance to make a difference. I mean, I think about God having a sense of humor, and I think about what we've learned along the way. So I want to close by all of us reflecting on where we've come just since 2010, and then picture where we might be by 2030 if we make the decisions now in 2020 to build that inclusive future for the next generation, where we can look them in the eyes and truthfully say, there is space for you, your uniqueness is celebrated, and yes, you belong. Thank you again so much for this honor. Stay healthy and stay involved.
Good night, and thank you.